So this is it. This is the first session of what I hope will be many sessions, each featuring a different musician. Today's musician being Leo, our lovely cellist Leo. So I've decided to set up this series because I decided that trying to replicate real life concerts was just not working particularly well, because you're never going to get that close to the real thing. So I thought it would be nice to play a little bit to kind of showcase our different instruments, each of the different instruments that's going to feature, but also to have a bit of a chat, and for audiences and music fans in general, to actually listen to some of the things that we don't normally get to speak about in concerts in such a formal setting. So that's the general concept behind the series. I'd like to say thank you to Countess of Munster. So both Leo and I are Countess of Munster recital scheme artists, and they are helping to fund this series. However, this is kind of the pilot. You've been picked, Leo, as the person for the pilot series. So from this, we're planning to launch a fundraiser. So if you have enjoyed what you've heard, it would be really, really great if you could donate to the fundraising link, which will be floating around somewhere. So that's kind of all the boring admin-y stuff out the way. So I know Leo from the trio that he's in. So he's in a trio with a couple of friends of ours, and they were formed at Guildhall. So yeah, Leo, I don't know if you want to say a bit about that.
Shall I say a bit about who I am?
Go for it.
I'm Leo. I'm the cellist that you've just seen. I've been wanting to play with Mira for a very long time. Our connection is that we, as well as both being recital artists on the Countess of Munster Trust recital scheme, we share a pianist. So my main work is in a piano trio, the Mithras trio, and Dominic de Gavino, the pianist, is also Mira's pianist. So I've been going to watch Mira and Dominic in concerts for the last 2 years or so, and we've been wanting to have some sort of collaboration for a while. So it's a treat to have this opportunity to play together.
And Dom will be featuring it in a later episode if it's funded.
Yeah.
That's the.
So donate. So I'll just say a bit briefly about the pieces that you've just heard. I played the Gigue from the Fourth Cello Suite by Bach in E flat major. The Gigue is the last movement of the suite. A suite is a prelude followed by a load of dance movements, and the Gigue, being the last one, is the most lively and upbeat and rollicking. And this Gigue, out of all the 6 suites, is, I think, the most rustic and the most rollicking. And every time I play it, it sort of makes me feel like I've got my lederhosen on and kind of running around in a field somewhere.
Your lederhosen.
It's great. And the piece we played together was very interesting, actually. I came across it looking for repertoire for flute and cello, which is a wonderful combination, I think, and under represented in the representative so far.
Well, you did say that the list wasn't very long.
But it's a fantastic piece. It's by Villa-Lobos, a brilliant Brazilian composer.
Brazilian, not Argentinian.
As I initially thought. So, Villa-Lobos wrote a lot for the cello and the flute and the voice. And we'll talk a little bit later about how our instruments are like voices. But this piece is called Assobio a Jato, which means jet whistle, and it's a fluty technique where you blow actually into the hole rather than over it.
Yes, you do. So it's this technique. Interestingly, it only features in the last movement, which is unfortunate because we just played the first movement of the piece for you. So you currently don't know what a jet whistle sounds like. I guess we'll have to play the whole piece.
We must.
And then you'll know what a jet whistle is.
Yeah. So the first move which we just played is it's in 2 halves, as you probably gathered. In the first half, I have a nice tune, and you're doing some fluty things, and in the second half, you have a nice tune, and I'm doing some cello-y things. And there's a nice sort of sense of dialogue and lyricism. I think it's very lyrical.
Yeah, so you know Villa-Lobos, this is my fun fact, that because I often play Villa-Lobos in concerts with various ensembles, but so Villa-Lobos had the option of either going down the popular route, like popular Brazilian music, kind of the likes of Tom Jobim and such like people, or going down the classical route, and he was kind of torn between the two. But I think you can kind of tell that from his music. That's kind of my
I mean the only Villa-Lobos that I know and have played have been his Bachianas Brasileiras, or several of them, which are Brazilian Bach pieces.
That's right.
So, and actually this piece as well, you sense that there's a Baroque sort of influence in the way that the harmony moves, in fifths, in sequences.
Should we pretend that program was completely intentional?
Yeah. So yeah, brilliant. It's a lovely piece, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope we get to play the rest of it.
Musicians just haven't had a great year as a result of COVID, and so I think we could do with a bit of positivity and talking about, you know, why we love being musicians, why we love doing what we do. So yeah, for that reason, we thought a good title for this session would be The Joy of Chamber Music. And so we're going to talk all about why we love chamber music, the different ensembles that we've been involved with, kind of the more practical matters of how we've gone about setting up ensembles, getting gigs, all that kind of thing. But yeah, so that's our topic for today.
So, shall I say that why I love chamber music so much?
Go for it.
Well, for me, playing chamber music I think chamber music is what all music is and should be, both on a practical level and on a sort of, you know, moral level. I think the thing which distinguishes chamber music is that it is for a smaller group of people in an intimate setting, and it's for enjoyment. And you know, as a player, it feels like friendship, chamber music. It feels like you're having conversations with your other chamber music partners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes arguments, but you can't have a good friendship without arguing sometimes. And yeah, I think as the scales of music increases and you have orchestral music and string orchestras and whatever, it's still the elements of listening to each other, of being aware not just of your own part, but how it works in a mix of it texturally in the mix is the same. It's just you've got more parts to think about. Exactly.
I think it's always nice to think of orchestral playing in that vein, or indeed larger ensembles. It doesn't really matter how big the group of players is. You still want to aim to have that connection, and that kind kind of collaborative music making going on.
Yeah, definitely. And collaboration is an important word, because
Yeah.
with an orchestra, you have your conductor who takes responsibility for the complexity of the ensemble, the complexity of textures, and has to direct. But as you become smaller scale, you start to have more corporate responsibility. So you each bring ideas to the table, and you have to bounce off each other, and all have an opinion.
Exactly, yeah. I think for that, all those reasons though, chamber music is quite an intense experience. And definitely for string quartets in particular, they live their life within the, kind of these four people, and that's
because it's such a similar sound between they're so married together, that texture, that to really make it sound like one instrument takes a lot of dedication, a lot of rehearsal.
Definitely a way of life, I think. The chamber music thing.
So in terms of the chamber music that we both do, my main group is a piano trio, which, unlike a string quartet, has the variety of the piano brings in the texture. And
well, that has its complexities as well as many positives.
It does, yeah. It's the stereotype is that playing in a trio as opposed to playing in a quartet, you have more license to be soloistic.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's what people say. I'm not sure what people mean by soloistic though, because the best string quartet players all play like soloists.
Exactly. Yeah. So, no more than a quartet.
But what it does mean is that your sound can be more distinct from your partners and still blend. You can still have an individual voice that is listenable, that you can pick out of the texture. And often this depends, of course, on the time that the piece was written, on the style. I mean, the way piano trio started was a sort of glorified sonata. So you have a sonata with two instruments, and then you put a cello in to play the bass line. That's sort of where Haydn came from. And then the cello starts to have more of a role.
Gets too big for its boots.
Exactly. So some of the Mozart trios start to actually have some tunes, and then Beethoven. Beethoven Opus 1 was like, boom, the cello suddenly on sort of an equal footing, and then, by Schubert and the end of Beethoven, it really is a more of an equal dialogue between the three.
That's become a form within itself.
Definitely. I think we have Haydn to thank for the origins of it, and then we have Beethoven to thank for the really cementing it as an art form. In the way that the quartet sort of was already. But how about you? What's your experiences?
So, my chamber music experiences are quite different from that. So I am very jealous of Leo's trio. They have all this absolutely brilliant repertoire, as you were saying, Beethoven, Haydn, Mozart, all the big, the big composers. Whereas the flute repertoire as a whole is not nearly as good, kind of generally.
Well, just not as vast.
Well,
not as established.
That's true. Yeah. We do have good repertoire, but not quite so much of it. Maybe that's a more accurate description. But the chamber ensembles I'm involved in. So firstly, there's a flute and guitar duo, Meraki duo. So that's with guitarist James Girling, who again will hopefully be featuring in a later episode. And we started playing together back in 2013. So that was our first year as undergraduates at the Royal Northern College of Music. So we started in 2013, and we're going strong to this day.
Yeah, it's a very long time. It's a lot longer than us.
well, what can I say? So
flute and guitar work quite well together.
That combination does work really well, and as a duo, we tend to play quite a variety of styles, which is really nice actually within a program. To be able to offer we don't have that much classical repertoire, so to speak, but that kind of stuff alongside jazz standards, alongside various folk music. Yeah, recently we've had, have I told you about this? We've had a piece written for us.
No.
Yes. Well, I don't know when this thing's gonna be out, this episode. It's a piece by a Brazilian composer who I met when I was studying at Royal Academy of Music, Rafael Marino Acaro, and it's cool. Amazing. It's a 4-movement work, and it is some of the most incredible music. Really difficult, especially for guitar, because he's a guitarist, so he's written this nigh on impossible stuff, but it's really good stuff. So that's quite an exciting development.
And I suppose having new music written for any ensemble is exciting. But for chamber music, it seems that when composers write for a smaller group of instruments, they really know those instruments. And it's interesting saying that the guitar, your composer's a guitarist.
Raf's a guitarist. But he's written a piece for flute and cello as well.
We should have done that.
If only we'd had time after they announced the lockdown.
I suppose most composers, if you look at the piano trio repertoire, most sort of established classical romantic composers played piano or played keyboard, and that was where they came from. And to write virtuosically for the keyboard, I think you have to be able to play it.
You do have, you can tell composers that were pianists and composers who were. I think.
And particularly Beethoven. I mean, his virtuosity was sort of legendary, as well as his improvisations and his cadenzas. So lots of the bits in his piano trios actually sound like they're like written out improvisations almost.
Well, especially when you've got Dom at the keyboard. No, I do really enjoy playing flute and piano repertoire as well, because for us that's it's a running joke when there's all this great trio repertoire, but when we have something vaguely meaty, something which is not very, but so I end up playing quite a lot of arrangements for that reason. So we've recently played an arrangement of Brahms' Clarinet Sonata. We did the F minor one. Actually, we sometimes steal other Brahms sonatas. I mean, we've got two for cello and piano, but we always steal the G major violin sonata all the time, and I'm sure there are arrangements of the clarinet sonatas that cellists do. Because violas play that quite a lot. Violas play it. And apparently it's a violin version, but I've never heard it played on violin.
I'm not sure I have either.
But I guess, they've got so many good sonatas.
And actually, that's the interesting, because Brahms is sort of unique in that with these sonatas, the instrument and the piano are quite even, and it's not just like melody and piano. It's that they're very much thematically linked.
Conversational throughout.
In a way that I imagine must be slightly rarer for you than it is for me, because you always play the tune.
Flutes are very good at playing the tune. How do you tend to think of the cello's role? If you start off within a trio setting.
So I mean, so with Haydn, really through the early romantic stuff, it's bass line, and then occasionally you get a bit of theme from the piano, and you take that over and play it. But pretty much always you're with the left hand, the piano, and your role is harmonic or rhythmic. There's very little melody. Mozart, you do have some quite. There are some melodic passages in the Mozart trio, and in the Mozart quartets. Actually, the cello starts to have a more prominent role. Probably because Mozart was friends with a very good cellist. That tends to be how it works.
It does tend to be that way.
But as through the Romantic period, and particularly with Russian trios, the piano trio in Russia became quite a tradition within a tradition. People like the elegiac trios of Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff. Arensky, and later Shostakovich. That music is much more subjective and coincides with the time when string players became virtuoso soloists. In the way that pianists sort of have always been, and the role of the cello has come to be known as an instrument that best represents the human voice in terms of range and whatever, and people always say that. And I think that starts really in the 19th century with these big Russian trios.
That's interesting.
It becomes passionate and lyrical, and like you're singing, you become like a singer.
Because flute players talk about the exact same thing, but I think that's more to do with kind of the technique of how we actually produce sound. It's
you kind of breathe, don't you?
Well, many things, many reasons. But yeah, so we're constantly engaging our vocal cords in that way, and kind of to produce different tones, different colour, all that kind of thing. It's very, very similar to how singers work. Support as well, all the kind of inner workings.
Yeah. Because breath is something that really, as string players, the only reason we think about breath, other than like not holding our breath for technical reasons, is to be in sympathy with how the phrase would go if it was sung.
Yeah.
So we might say, why would we breathe in this place? What would a singer do? Why has the composer written it like this? And what would the effect of having the breath in that place be? Or like where should we breathe? How do we move? How do we go forward? How do we pause?
Yeah, the dreaded masterclass technique. In masterclasses, when they make you sing in front of a whole audience.
Yeah.
But there's a reason for that. I
mean, we sing in what? Certainly, I sing in rehearsals all the time.
You sing all the time. You sing at me in the corridors.
I think singing is that instrumentalists should all try and sound like singers lots of the time.
Yeah.
Repertoire sensitive, but this singing is the most pure human musical expression, I think, and
the most natural.
The most natural, and instruments are just an imitation of that, or an amplification of that, or some variant with a different colour, different texture. But I do definitely, on the cello, try and sing.
Try and replicate.
Try and sing in romantic repertoire.
I don't know, should we talk a little bit about kind of how we've gone about setting up our own ensembles over the years?
Yeah.
Yeah? I wondered whether that is... Audiences are always really interested in that, I find, whenever we do concerts.
What goes on behind the scenes.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I suppose that's kind of the purpose of this whole series.
Yeah, apart from drinking tea and chatting.
Yeah, basically, just come around for a chat. Socially distanced chat.
I mean, we got together, my trio got together, we were formed at an institution, so we were recommended to have a go at playing with each other, and then we did, and it worked really well, and we had support and guidance sort of right from the beginning. And I think we were quite lucky to have that.
Guildhall are great for that, I think. Certain music colleges around the country, they're really, really good at focusing on chamber music, and you're putting players together who they think will work well together.
Yeah, I do think that to have a really strong, successful group, it's easy to underestimate the dedication of it. And the rehearsal time that you need if you really want to take it somewhere, and that actually is in a sort of slightly different spirit to what we're doing today in terms of chamber music, of just playing with friends and exploring your repertoire and expanding our boundaries.
I suppose that's kind of the two sides of it. There's the kind of absolute dedication and cementing an ensemble, and then there's the fun aspect of it.
Yeah, having a joy for playing together and a passion for improving together, I think is quite important.
Yeah, but it should always remain joyful, I think.
Yeah. There should be lots of talking, I think, is the key.
Lots of talking. James and I started our flute and guitar duo during Freshers Week at our NCM, right? So it was one of the kind of the Freshers Week events, and we'd all had one beer too many. And I thought it would be a great idea to say, hey, we should play some Piazzolla sometime. And we're still doing the same thing. 7 years
Very
later.
Nice. Piazzolla,
Argentinian. Right,
got it.
Quiz. Villa-Lobos.
Brazilian. I understand now. Obviously clicked, and then kept on
strong.
What made you? Did you keep on having to look for new repertoire to inspire you to keep playing together?
Definitely. So there's as I said, there's not a huge amount of flute and guitar repertoire. So, but I tend to think of that as a positive, that we can basically play whatever we like within reason. And so we do play a lot of arrangements, a lot of all kinds of stuff. A lot of songs work particularly well. So we did a whole program arrangements of songs kind of through the year. So starting with Dal and ending up with some like Brazilian pop tunes by Jobim.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, cellos play song arrangements quite often. Normally like romantic songs.
Yeah.
Like Brahms, Schubert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, we played.
But they work really, really well.
For flute and piano as well, we tend to steal a lot of repertoire, like Brahms.
Yeah.
And a lot of vocal repertoire.
But it's funny about chamber music. It's two flip sides in that you've got the joy of just being intimate and friendly and having a go. And that spirit of just doing it for pleasure. Yeah. And then you've got the fact that this repertoire is amazing, and you've got to...
And intense.
And you've got to study it and get the best out of it and put all of yourself into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is true. Yeah. I think I've had it... So, exclusively I've kind of, by accident, largely chosen who I wanted to work with. And the same is true. So I've just started a flute and harp duo.
I saw your first concert.
That was completely mad because we started that duo when it was, we'd just come out of lockdown, but in the middle of all this COVID business, which was completely crazy. But so that was definitely a conscious decision that I wanted to play some flute and harp repertoire. So,
Yeah, and there's lots of good repertoire for flute and harp, I imagine.
Yeah.
Sometimes with a viola added. That seems to be a useful little trio.
Debussy trio.
Yeah.
Very nice. So this has been really nice. It's been really nice actually seeing another person, because there's not been a huge amount of that this year, and even more playing with another person. Yeah, so that has been really lovely. So that's it. This has been the first session of this new series, and I really hope to make some more episodes. I've not invited them all yet, but I have a host of wonderful musicians lined up, and each kind of excelling in various different spheres of music making. Some amazing jazz musicians, other chamber musicians, other people who specialise in orchestral playing, new music, you name it. That's one of the great things about being a musician for me. Leo, don't know.
Thank you for watching and listening. It's been such a pleasure.
And
so thank you for having me. You're welcome. Thank you for the cookies.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching.